Hello, my name is Mark Smith, and I am the Program Manager of CSULB's Bachelor of Arts and Liberal Arts Degree Completion Program. Thank you for your interest in our program's information session. Now, here is the Program Director, Dr. Mathy Rojas.
Let me go ahead and get started, and we'll talk about the sort of nuts and bolts of the program, who we're looking for, what it entails in terms of time and coursework, and of course we'll also cover the cost and give you some comparisons to how our program is similar or not similar with others. All right? Okay, all right, so let me go ahead and get started. Okay, so who we are, a little bit about our particular program, the BALA program. So it is housed at CSULB, which many of you probably are already familiar with, but some of the bragging points that our university has is that it's really been a rising star in academia. It's been on the U.S. News and World Report several years in a row now, and most recently in its 2015 Best Colleges Guide, we were ranked 6th best public regional university in the West. And along with that, we were also named one of the top 10 colleges in the nation to receive the most applicants from first-time freshmen. So all to say that we've become very popular. And this is fantastic in terms of the kind of reputation that the university then is gaining. It's maybe of less exciting for the students who now find themselves competing with a lot more students. And so in some ways, this is where the BALA program can assist that issue as well. So the BALA program is drawn from 2 of the colleges at CSULB. CSULB is made up of 8 individual colleges, and the 2 that we've brought together share really particular things that actually then work well as a partnership. So the College of Continuing and Professional Education, this is a college that is focused on doing outreach to individuals who can't really take traditional coursework. In some cases, these are individuals who have not completed their BA, such as yourselves. In other cases, they have programs for master's students, for special certificates, etc. Throughout, what brings the college sort of together through its programs is the fact that it focuses on various delivery methods. So by that we mean there's the hybrid where courses are taken both online and face-to-face. Some are only face-to-face, and then others are completely online. Our program is a hybrid program, as I'll go into in a moment. Secondly, it's on a self-support basis. Excuse me for that. So what that means is that it is not considered stateside, so it does not receive the same stateside funds. It basically runs itself through the enrollments that it receives for these particular specialized programs. And as I've mentioned before, it's really focused on the fact that many individuals have very busy work schedules, very demanding work schedules that don't allow them to attend class, say, at 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., which is what the traditional college student still does. So with that, the College of Continuing and Professional Education looked to the College of Liberal Arts, which is actually the college that I'm housed in and have been at for the last 15 years, as the sort of ideal partner in the sense that we are the largest of the colleges and we're the most diverse. We have 27 different departments that sort of offer all sorts of different possibilities to understand what the liberal arts are. So be it through history, through English, sociology, psychology, anthropology, there's many different ways to sort of get at what the liberal arts are and how they work in everyday life. We get so many calls from companies that are excited about this kind of program, that feel that they are looking for well-rounded individuals, and they have found that most often that is from students that graduate from the liberal arts. So all to say that then the BALA program brings all of this together. It is a high-quality CSU degree, which means it's the same degree that anyone, including someone like Steven Spielberg, has, so you'd be able to share that that degree with him, in other words. And it is for students that have actually really been close to graduating, even if it has truly been 20 years, meaning that they are about 48 baccalaureate units away from finishing that 4-year degree. And another specialized element of the BALA program is that it has a predetermined course schedule. So what that means is that students can consistently count on when classes will be offered. They're offered on Wednesday evenings and also on every other Saturday. And I'll go into what that schedule looks like in a moment. But just to know that that is consistent throughout the entire program, and it's never changed since the inception of the program. Okay, so getting into then who we are, but also who we want. The person that we're seeking has particular characteristics, and I'll just start with describing what it means to be dedicated to completing their degree in a fast-paced community environment. We have absolutely no judgment as to why in the past our applicants might have not been able to do so. There are so many reasons, and actually one of the really wonderful aspects of our cohort model is that it's one of the first times that these students feel validated because they're not the only one. In fact, normally they're in a classroom with everyone that has the same circumstances, even though the particulars may be different. So family commitments are one of the top things that have kept people from getting their degrees. Choosing a major that they were ill-equipped to follow through on, having a job promotion come up, having an illness happen, having outside family responsibilities to take care of. All sorts of things that in the past, rather than understand that that was just what had to happen, people felt ashamed because it left them then failing a class or having a withdrawal or simply just leaving a program without being able to do anything about it. That is all wiped out with our program, and all of these students really support each other because they understand each other, and similarly the program understands them. And so despite all that, what we want is somebody who now says, this is it. This was maybe your 2015 resolution. This is something that I want to do by this age. This is something that I want to do for my child, etc. The dedication is now there. And so this is the primary thing that we look for in our applicants to be our students. Similarly, when we talk about it being a fast-paced environment, it's not anything wild or unpredictable or in any way something that's impossible to keep up with, but it means that it's steady. We have you take classes the entire 2 years that the program runs. So every month, except for the 3 weeks off that you get for Christmas and a couple of weeks off in between the semesters, and we'll talk about what those look like, you are in school. So that we have found is very useful because, again, when breaks happen, we find that people have a hard time coming back into their routine. So we are out to just get you done. And that said, as I mentioned, it's very community-oriented, and what we mean by that is that we're a very unique program in that we're the only program that focuses on the cohort model. And so what that means is that everyone that applies and is accepted into the program will then be in the same classes throughout their entire program. They will take their first class together, their last class together, and they'll be walking across that stage together. And we have found that, again, studies have shown over and over that when you have a cohort model, when you have a group of peers that care about you, if you show up or don't, if you understood something or didn't, that you can ask questions to about assignments, etc., that tends to really increase the ability to be successful in academia, to be able to finish the kinds of degrees that you're setting out to do. And just to give you a couple of quick personal examples that just came up recently, we have had students who, excuse me, the day that they have a midterm, we had one student whose car died and was frantic, and she texted a few of her cohort friends, and within just a few minutes somebody was able to adjust their schedule and go by and pick her up so that she could make her exam. Not something that happens often in a class of 200 people where they're all relatively all strangers. Secondly, we had our first cohort, we had a student who unfortunately had a very bad car accident very soon after the semester started and was in the hospital for several weeks. And we had not just the students who rallied around her, checked in, sent flowers, took notes for her, etc., but actually even the faculty who tried very hard to work with her and to make sure that she could do what she could to keep up. And so that kind of commitment and that kind of care is something that we really pride ourselves in the program about. It is something that very much sets us apart, and it's something that we're very determined to keep centered in the program. That said, moving on to the second part of what we're looking for, as I said, we are looking for someone who has done a good amount of work already. Our program is a 48-unit program. And so overall, CSULB requires 120 units to graduate. So when you do the math, that means that students will need to come in with 72 units. There's a tiny bit of wiggle room there, and I'll review that in a bit. But generally speaking, this is what you want as your goal to be able to come into the program. Now, if you have more than that, that's fine. Our program, however, is a 48-unit program, so it basically just starts counting and stops counting from that 72 units. And lastly, when we describe wanting someone who's academically ready, what we mean by that is that these are individuals who understand the responsibilities of getting a college education. It means that they have a computer at their disposal. Everything is done online, as you can see by the session, and that they have printer capabilities, etc., the ability to submit their work. And then similarly, that they are ready to do the reading assignments and to follow through with the amount of writing and group work that's often required in each class. All right, so moving on from there, what I want to show you is what we hope the equation looks like. We are, as I mentioned, this unique cohort degree program. We are focused on adults who have these significant units, and our program begins and ends in exactly 2 years. When we add then the kind of the individual we hope you are, someone who is, if you then are the individual who is enthusiastic and who has not completed their degree for whatever reason, but are in it now and want to do it, then we hope that then the program will be the perfect match for you. And the picture that you see on the right is another one of our proud examples. This is Lisa Frenchie, who was part of our first cohort. And what you see her holding there is her degree, which in her application letter to us, she let us know she had purchased a frame for back when she was very young and had been a traditional student who'd been accepted, and in her freshman year got pregnant, and as a result had to drop the program. But she brought that degree for herself, that frame for her degree, to convince herself that she'd do it. Fast forward 16 years, and her daughter is now getting ready to look at colleges herself, and Lisa feels that she needs to do this. And so she pulls that frame out, and now it does hold her degree that she has there in the picture. So I really hope that this is something that can encourage all of you, regardless if our program is right for you or not, that this image of Lisa is one that is so similar to so many people out there that are so close to finishing but haven't. So, okay, a little bit about then what the program will look like overall. As I mentioned, 120 units is what CSULB requires of all its students in order to graduate them. And so for our BALA students, what that means is that you will complete the 48 units that would make up the major in our degree, and then you'll have brought in your GE education degrees, units, and our hope is that these will be previously completed. I'll explain how that may affect it if they're not. And then lastly, all students have to take the GWAR, the Graduate Writing Assessment Requirement. And this is basically a 75-minute exam that's taken during the first semester that you're enrolled in our program, enrolled on campus. All students who transfer in are required to take it. It has well over a 90% pass rate. It's a very simple exam. And if you happen to be a student that's been at CSULB before and have already passed it, then of course it doesn't apply to you. But it is a requirement, and if for some reason the student has not completed does not pass this requirement, then there is a class, possibly two, depending on their score, that they would have to take. But again, I can say that in all of our cohorts, I believe we have only had 2 students that have had to take this GWAR requirement. And so it's very rare, but again, we work with them and they are graduated. It did not in any way impede that. Okay, so moving forward, a little bit about what our coursework looks like. So we have students take 2 courses every term, and when I mentioned the semester thing, for us, this every term means you take classes in the fall, and then you do take 1 class in the winter. You come back and then again take the 2 classes in the spring, and then over the summer you also take 2 classes. And this is how we get you out in 2 years flat. Again, the classes are held Wednesday evenings, every Wednesday from 7 to 10 p.m. On the first and the third Wednesday, you would take your first course, and on the second and fourth Wednesday, you would take the other course. Now, on non-consecutive Saturdays, which basically breaks down to every other Saturday, oftentimes the first and the third Saturdays, you take both courses. In the morning, you take your first class from 1 to noon, with breaks in between, of course, and then you break, and then you go to lunch. Oftentimes our cohort goes together to lunch, but folks are free to do what they like. And then you come back in the afternoon and have your second class from 1 to 5, again with breaks in between. And our faculty makes sure to combine lecture with group activity, with film, and all sorts of different things so that you're not just sitting in your seat for 8 hours that day. But it is a full day. All right, and then the classes are then drawn from 3 different areas. As you can see, oral and written communication is pretty straightforward. These are very important skills that all employers want and that the liberal arts really highlights, and so we make sure to have you take courses from that. Secondly, from our Area 2, we really understand that we live in a globalized world, and that means that even though there may be nation boundaries, they're only in some ways they're imaginary, because our country deals with many other countries, on a regular basis, and that means our employers, companies do as well. And so we want to train our students to be able to be adept at that. And as a result, we really try to focus on creating a global citizen. And so we try to impart knowledge that can come at you from different disciplines and allow you to think about it as a consequence from different perspectives. And as you'll see with Area 3, we even highlight that further by focusing on different cultures, different value systems, and different beliefs. And so as you can see, these courses, which tackle different areas, and I'll give you in a moment a list of some of the courses that we've offered in the past, often end up addressing the same issues, but just from different perspectives. So for example, say a legislative system is examined from an anthropological perspective and as well from a political science perspective. Understanding the family may be looked at from a psychology perspective and then really thought about on philosophical terms from a philosophy class. So it's basically getting you to think about different ways of solving problems. And again, this is one of the highlights of a liberal arts degree. It is about teaching, training our students to be able to be great leaders, which means being good at problem solving. And then the last class you'll see below, you take this in your very last semester, and it is a portfolio class, and you'll actually take this class with me. And it's kind of what it sounds like. Throughout each of the classes that you take, you'll be responsible for accumulating the paperwork that you do in that class. So be that written essay assignments, presentations, handouts that you create, exams that you take, etc. And so then when you take the portfolio class, you will go through all of this paperwork and you'll pull out from each class highlights that really demonstrate how you gained knowledge in that class, like what really spoke to you. As we know, not all students learn the same. And then once you've done that, you'll be putting them into a binder and you'll be attaching to that an essay that you'll be working on throughout the entire semester. It's 12 pages that highlights and explains what these materials are, how they've informed you, how they've challenged you, changed you, etc. And in addition, you'll be able to talk about what a liberal arts degree means to you. Now, this is not just an exercise. The way that we pursue this assignment is to think of it as ways that then you can cut and paste and literally lift sections of that into cover letters for future employment opportunities, in reports where you describe the kind of education that you got and how it applies to what you want to do currently in your job place. In interviews that you might have, you're able to then look at this as a kind of script. So we're always really aware that we want to create an education that allows you to really reinforce and strengthen your work skills. All right. Okay, so moving forward, just a few more slides. Just want to break down what the 72 units that we are asking for should look like. So I mentioned before they should be baccalaureate level. What that means is they should be classes that exist on our campus that are college classes. So Even though, for example, students may have taken classes in, say, real estate, which are very popular and very helpful, the university does not offer that sort of degree or that sort of emphasis. So those would not be considered baccalaureate. And there's a very simple way if you're not sure how to assess this. One is to certainly go to that website that's listed there and is in the paperwork that you received. Excuse me, or another option that we strongly suggest you follow is that you send us your transcript. We are very fortunate, and again, this is a big coup that we have that stateside will never be able to provide to its applicants, and that is we have a retired transcript evaluator who works for enrollment services at CSULB on the state side, who we now hire privately to do an informal, unofficial review of your transcript. And with 33 years experience, she really is able to tell you up front, you're going to get, you have an excellent chance of being accepted, there's nothing wrong, everything looks good, or hey, it's not likely you're going to be able to get into this program, you're missing this and this requirement, you don't have enough units, this is an issue, etc. And so this is a service that we provide absolutely free, and all it requires is for you to scan your transcripts. Again, they don't have to be official, so they don't need any stamp or anything of that nature, and then you just send them to us and ask that we review them, and we send you back a report that very clearly indicates that. And it's actually done fairly quickly, so it's a great option, and I really encourage you, if you're at all considering the program, to absolutely do it. Okay, now in terms of what those 72 units also require is that 30 of them should go toward your GE requirements, and 12 of them must cover these foundational courses. So a course in written communication, one in oral communication, critical thinking, and the one that tends to always stumble people, the mathematics course, the quantitative reasoning. So unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about this. These are units that have to be completed before students are accepted into the program. Now, the one thing that you can have is if you are currently enrolled, if the class is in progress and so you haven't completed it, but you are taking it, that will be accepted. It only does require then that once you finish the class and before you actually start at CSULB, you submit the transcript that shows that you passed it with a C or better. All right. Now, I had said that there was a small caveat regarding the 72 units. So if you are someone who has only taken community college classes, well, community college, in terms of what we accept, maxes out at 70 units. So that leaves this sort of weird 2-unit hanging situation. And so what we've done is agreed that if you fall into this camp and you only have the 70 units, we would recommend, of course, that you try to complete really what ends up usually being a 3-unit class, because very few classes are 2 units, and to get it out of the way before you start the program. However, if you're not able to, then we will assist you in having you make up that class normally at the end of the program, so that you can still graduate on time. All right. Okay, and then moving on. And we're almost getting ready to wrap up, and then I'll take your questions. I want to highlight some of the perks. I've already mentioned the transcript review, which is a big deal. And also I should mention that when you're going through the applicant process, our office has access to all of the steps that you're at, and so we're able to tell you a lot quicker if something's missing or, et cetera. But these are some added perks as well. So I had mentioned that it's become a very competitive campus. Traditionally, students just needed a 2.0 to enter the CSU system. But as popularity at the campus has grown, that's actually no longer the case. Technically, students need a 2.0, but because they're in competition with so many, and as you see there from the third bullet point, over 81,000 students applied last year. And we're expecting that when the numbers come in this year, they'll look the same, if not higher. And so what that means is our entire campus only houses about 35,000 students. So we had more than double apply to just fill in the positions that are normally reserved for freshmen and some transfers. That means that the competition is fierce. And so what it's done is it's bumped a lot of students out. For us, however, we are not subject to that. We only require the 2.0 that CSU requires. And other than that, you're not in competition with anyone. We just accept a 2.0 flat. So if you have a 3.0, fabulous, you will be accepted with that. And if you are right at the 2.0, you're just as good. You don't compete with each other, and you don't compete with stateside. All right. So then these are some of the classes. I'll just highlight a few there. And these are not the only classes that we offer, and we sort of move them around sort of based on faculty schedules. We try to keep the same faculty who are very loyal to the program and who really understand our student population and work very sympathetically and empathetically with them. In many cases, the faculty disclose their own struggles in completing their degrees, and that's always helpful to students. But these are some of the courses. As you can see, a lot focus on cultural values, beliefs, etc. You can see, especially the ones around ethnic studies and women's studies. And then, of course, we have more traditional courses. We have communication studies, English, geography, psychology, religious studies, etc. And these are all courses that students have really enjoyed. This is part of the reason that we've kept most of these is because of student input. And they are classes that are focused on, again, really sharpening your skills as a liberal arts student. Okay, now a little bit about what this looks like visually. This tends to be one of the most helpful slides that we present. So you hear 2 years, and that can seem really big, but it actually goes very quickly. So as you can see, all students that are accepted into the program will start in fall 2015, and you will have both your classes on campus that semester. Now in the winter, you will only take one class. We don't want students overwhelmed, and it doesn't start until after the holidays, and it basically will go for 3 weeks. And as you see there then, you will complete it online entirely. Now you'll come back in 2016 and back to the same schedule of having 2 classes on campus. Now in the summer, our students have let us know, and we've clearly recognized that that people get very busy because kids are out of school. This is when vacations tend to happen, etc. And so we've tried to make it as feasible for our applicants as possible. We have you take one class on campus, but then we allow the other class to be online. And what I mean by that is it's still a class that we schedule for you, but it allows us to have more flexibility to offer our students. And so one class on campus, one class online. In the fall, you'll return and you'll have your classes on campus. That winter, you'll repeat the same thing as the year before. And then that spring will be when you'll have your last on-campus classes. And that's also the semester that you are welcome to go ahead and walk in anticipation of your upcoming graduation. Again, our university only holds one graduation, and it's always in the spring. So our students always have the option of either walking that spring when they're on campus or completing it the following spring when they're absolutely done and have actually graduated with their degree. Now, as you see then, summer and fall that follow are completely online. So what that transfers into is 72 units plus the 48 of the program will get you the 120 that you need to get your degree. Okay, I've mentioned before that if there are issues that sort of arise because you didn't complete all your GEs, this is how we handle it. Now, we understand that each student comes in with a unique record, and we try to work as closely as we can individually with each of those students. But in terms of the GE requirements, now, if you come in and say you've missed, and this has happened many times, a student has missed a science requirement or an art requirement, and they haven't fulfilled all of their 70 units of community college credit that they can bring in, then they're able to just enroll in a GE class while they're with us and make up those classes at a community college. And it's normally, if anything, one class. I rarely have a student that has more than 2, and actually I cannot think of a student that's had more than 2 of these classes to make up. The majority, a large majority, have already completed all of these and have nothing else to make up. And normally it's like one class that it may hold up one person or another. So you can do it that way. You can certainly go to another four-year university. And then we do have Open University at CCPE. That's our partner. And so when you're not enrolled with us, you are able to take a class with them. And I will explain that more to you once, again, your transcripts reviewed and you've been accepted to the program, and we can kind of see where you're at with it. Now, I want to mention, though, that if it's an upper division unit that obviously then can't be completed at a community college, then you're looking at having to make that up at a four-year institution, so either CSULB or another place. Now note, as I mentioned at the bottom there, students are financially responsible for anything that goes over those 48 units. And so we really recommend, strongly recommend, really recommend that you complete all of that before starting BALA. But again, we will work with you. Okay, so then looking at what that means financially, outside of anything extra that you might have, like a GE class, etc. This is what our program costs. It's not a cheap program, but as we'll talk about in comparison to other programs, it's a very reasonable program. So each unit is $426, which means that each class, remember there are two every semester except for winter, will cost $1,278. All right? Which means overall the entire program will cost $20,448. Now, one big perk, again very different from stateside, is that this is a fixed rate. Your cohort comes in paying this amount, $426 per unit, and it leaves paying that amount. There are no hidden costs. There is never a hike in tuition or an added expense with fees, which, as you'll see with stateside, has been a consistent thing for many years now. In fact, to give you another short anecdote, our first cohort, when they came in, the cost per unit was $415. So it was initially, I think it was maybe about $50, $60 higher than stateside. By the time that they started their spring semester, because the university had experienced so many cutbacks and everything else, they were paying less. So the rest of their entire program, they paid less because each semester, each subsequent semester, students on stateside paid more. So overall, their education was significantly less than it was for stateside students that would have been, there at the same time. And to highlight what the tuition includes, you are considered fully matriculated, so you are a student of the university. This is often helpful. For example, those of you that have employers that will pay for that, right? We've had students who have been on public assistance, and this is a requirement that they be enrolled in school, fill out lots of paperwork for that all the time, so that if that's a possibility or a need for you. And you get a student ID card. This is kind of a fun perk. All CSULB students get this card. It means that you can ride the CSULB passport and local transit for free, because our Long Beach city is very committed to public transportation, and so they want our students to be encouraged to do so. And then secondly, you have access to the library, to all of the computer labs on campus. So for example, if you do need to print something out or check your email or even work on a paper a couple hours before class or in between classes, you're welcome to do that. And another thing, if you're a sports fan, is that the card grants you access into any of the games for free. All right, and then of course lastly, as I mentioned before, I think another big perk, especially again given where the university is with cutbacks and what have you, your classes are guaranteed. You will never be dropped from the class. You will never be in competition with any other student for a class, which means that you won't find a class is full and you can't get in. And you will always have a faculty member that's committed to teaching that class, and you'll know who that is. So these are things, unfortunately, that stateside isn't able to do with so many students. But with our cohorts, which run at their maximum of 25, but really our cohorts have been more around 20 students, this is quite manageable for us. Okay. So just to wrap up, this is what our tuition compares then to when you look at our local campuses around Southern California. So on the top, you'll see the CSUs. These are the estimated costs for students who would be attending for 5 years. At a local UC, you can see there all the much higher costs, right, of going for 4 years, which tends to be the graduation rate at a UC. And then lastly, the private schools, which certainly, as you can see, cost a great deal more. And we highlight University of Phoenix as well, because it is oftentimes one that students will pursue, in a sense that they believe that it's a quick way to finish their degree. But it tends to be a very expensive education overall, and we find that in terms of, well, I should say students find that in terms of our program versus this kind of for-profit university, our program has a lot more stability to it and is lower cost and is able to often provide students with better results. So as you can see, this is how the breakdown is, and consequently $20,448. So it's not cheap, but it is quite affordable in relation to these. Okay, so you're ready to then apply. This is what it looks like. We are currently accepting applications, and we have been since October, and they are coming in fast. And so we, even though our deadline is March 1st, we highly encourage you to apply much sooner, because March 1st is the deadline for all CSU programs. And so the enrollment services on stateside, which is initially what your application also goes through, is flooded with applications. It takes a lot longer, and it requires then students to be much more patient in hearing back. It also, if there's any problem with your application, and there often is, because there'll be something missing, a supplemental part of the application that hasn't been filled out, etc., it takes longer for students to hear that that exists. So the sooner you apply, the quicker that everyone can get to your application and it can be looked at. And again, students are quickly applying now, so it's a great thing for you to jump on. That's the website that you'll need to submit your application to. And in the paperwork that you will receive from us, you'll see step-by-step instructions on how to fill out that application in terms of drop menus, etc. And then once your application is submitted, the other thing that you absolutely must do, and your application will not be able to move forward without, is submit all your official transcripts. And by official, we mean they are stamped and sealed, and you've in no way actually opened them or anything. And you can drop them off in person to enrollment services, or you can have them mailed, which is what most people do. Now again, you see there that you do have until March 15th. I would strongly, and in some ways almost more so than the application, encourage you to get on this sooner rather than later, because again, with getting 80,000 applicants sending in their transcripts, all kinds of havoc happens. And it happens in so many different places, whether it's when you submit the request, if it's accepted or not by the university you're requesting it from, the college, if that then is processed accurately and then sent out, if the post office delivers it, if it's received by our staff. There's so many places where problems happen, and I can tell you that every single cohort we have had students that we have had who have had to resubmit several times their transcripts, who have just had things come up that were unexpected in relation to their transcripts. And so we always caution that you send them in sooner. Again, it will really speed up your application and hopefully minimize the level of frustration with applying. Again, you have to bear with us, given that it's a program that is tied to a university that has so many students wanting to attend. Now, once transcripts and applications are in and everything's been reviewed and we're able to show that you are indeed eligible, our office will be informed of it, and then we will contact you and ask you to submit your essay. And you see there the website that you can submit it to. And in fact, if you want, you can get a jump start on that. You'll see in the paperwork what the prompt is. It's very simple. We simply want to know why you want to come to our program, like what it is that you're drawn to. And we're looking for just basic proficiency in writing. No sort of major expertise in it, but just that, again, you're academically ready. So once all of these steps have been taken and passed, then you can await that letter from us. And I will say that we have a very, very high acceptance rate. It is just hovering, I think, around 95%. So we've only had to turn away a few students, or in a few cases, students have withdrawn an application or something. So we generally tend to be able to take everyone that does apply to us. All right, so I'll go ahead and end with that. I'll take any questions that you have in a moment, but if you forget anything or if you have additional questions, you can reach myself at the following number and at that email address. And in terms of those transcripts that I mentioned, if you want to have reviewed, which we highly encourage, this is the email address that you'll need to send them to. All right, okay, so thank you for bearing with me. I know it's a lot to hear and to have to sit in for, but with that, I'll go ahead and end, and I'm completely open to hearing any, or I should say reading, I guess, or hearing if you have your audio, any questions that you might have. So feel free to ask away. Oh, okay, perfect, yes, great question. Sorry I didn't cover that. Do you have any information about financial assistance? Yes, we do. So Students are eligible for the Pell Grant, which is a federal award that is given to students who qualify, and for any subsidized and unsubsidized loan. Basically, all financial assistance except for Cal Grants. Cal Grants are state funds, right? And so since we're not stateside, we're not able to draw from that. But everything else students can take from. And we do actually have a direct liaison that we work with in the financial aid office, which again is a big benefit, because if you've ever had to deal with university financial aid office, whether it's ours or anyone else's, it can be a big headache if it's a big university. So we try to really tailor that for you, and any questions that come up, try to deal directly with them for you. And by that I mean, put you in contact with the person you need to speak to. And also I should mention that we on campus have a scholarship office. This is one that's open to all students, and several of our students have qualified for those scholarships they have available. They have a lot, like over 500 different kinds of scholarships, and they have a handful that are specifically for students who are adults returning to the university. And in fact, we've had I want to say we've had at least 2 students out of our 3 cohorts that have gotten that particular award that's actually for women. So yes, the answer is yes. Oh, great, Abby. I'm so glad that you want to submit your transcript. And Sandra, I don't know if you have either yet, but I want to encourage you to do the same. A couple things I just thought of that often come up is students will say, well, okay, what about books? And books, of course, are their own cost. But again, faculty really focus on minimizing the cost. And so I would say that on the average, the cost runs anywhere between $25 to about like $80 in cost. It's not an overwhelming amount. It's very reasonable, and in some cases, a lot of information is actually provided through PDFs that are posted online, so it's free. But the costs are minimal in that sense. And then one perk about that is that if you buy your books ahead of time and you let our office know, we'll actually have those books picked up and delivered to you on the first day of class. That's a big one, because getting through the bookstore the first couple of weeks of school when you're also leaving a job right before class is really hard for a lot of people. So this is a nice perk that we also offer. All right, any other questions that you might have? I'll mention one thing I know often comes up. What do the students look like? So the profile of our students it varies a bit, but to be honest, there's some consistent characteristics. We are predominantly we have more female students than male. We definitely have male students, but there are more women. And I think that sort of makes sense when you think about the fact that family responsibilities, at-home responsibilities, tend to fall on women. And so it makes sense that then they're the ones who postpone their education as a result. Our age range tends to be somewhere between mid-30s to early 50s. I would say a good portion of our students are late 30s and early 40s. We do have some folks that are in their 20s. And I think Reva actually, I think, sees this very proudly. The person from our video, she's our oldest, and that she was in her mid-50s, I believe, mid-50s or late 50s. In any case, so that tends to be, they're all mostly local. Many have attended CSULB or lots of other campuses, but we've had a few that had coursework all the way from Florida or Iowa. So there's some range there. Oh, and I will say the majority do have employment that requires them to kind of figure out how to balance the two. Okay, anything else? Okay, great. All right, okay then. I will hopefully hear from you. I would love to see you guys join the program. And if not, I just want to encourage you to complete that education. It is such a personal achievement that you can never have taken away from you, and really will ultimately change your life. And so I really encourage you to do with it what you can. And if we can assist in any way, absolutely, please contact us. We love what we do. It's been a pleasure for us to work work on this program, and so we want to be able to continue that tradition. All right, so I hope to see your applications down the line, and if not, the best to you, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye.